Good evening. Welcome to Spectacular Chicago. I'm your host, Jim Balzer, and we've got a host of subjects to discuss tonight. I'd like to start off with the kerfuffle between the Pope and Donald T. Rump, Donald Trump to some of you. I'll say this. We've got an issue in Iran. We've been contending with this. Anybody old enough to remember our American hostages being taken from the embassy some 50 years ago? They want to get nukes. They want to kill us. Pretty simple concept to address the problem. But the Pope doesn't see it that way. I'd like to leave one thought. I don't trust a man who does not admit to having any vices. My next topic, I always like to do a PSA. For any of those that are Costco shoppers, it's not a bad company to buy from. However, we're going to talk about somebody who purchased a dryer from Costco and couldn't get proper installation. So I had a look at the replacement dryer. Thing was significantly noisier than the original dryer, cheaply made in comparison to the old unit that was 20 years old that it was replacing. And the consumer, after 4 attempts, was unable to persuade the Costco independent installer to properly install the dryer. And as you can see in the image, the washing machine is with the black top and the dryer is with the white top, which is about 14, 15 inches from the wall. I took the picture. Normally, that dryer should be almost flush with the wall if the installer elected to use the right ducting. Except they didn't want to do that. They just wanted to use the original ducting and not properly do it. So I took the liberty of contacting Costco on behalf of the purchaser, and was told, well, we'll send somebody back. And then they sent somebody back, and then the person says, well, we need can you find somebody that speaks Spanish so our guy can understand what to do? Well, okay, that might be fine and well, but English is commonly the language of business here in the United States, and you shouldn't be asking a consumer to learn how to speak Spanish to communicate with somebody to properly install their dryer. This person knew this was a poor installation, yet they left it that way anyway. So again, four attempts. So the takeaway here is don't buy a clothes dryer from Costco. This is what you're going to end up with, and the quality of this dryer is terrible. Okay, my next subject. I understand the Obama Presidential Center, they're doing an initial grand opening gala, invite only. So this image is taken of the Obama Center, call it, and invite only guests. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying, what does this look like to me? Where have I seen this before? First, in the context of Chicago architecture, it's hideous. But then I remembered where I'd seen it before some years ago. So if we could take a look at the, anybody familiar with Star Trek or a Trekkie out there will observe the Borg spaceship. And then there's the USS Enterprise on the side of it there. And you see any similarities? It appears the architect was a Star Trek fan and photoshopped the Borg spaceship into brick and mortar reality. So we'll go to the next exhibit. I wonder whether any of these people are on the invite list. To the left, you have Jeri Ryan. You might know her. She was married to former, He ran for U.S. Senate, but got put out because he was taking her to the, the kink shows in France and wanted her to participate in 3 ways. In the middle is Jean-Luc Picard, and then on the right is the Borg Queen. So I guess everyone swallows the blue pill and is assimilated, I guess, but I digress. So the next topic, anybody who rides Metra? Well, the way to really fly. I'm going to pull out here the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin article, and in the article it discusses Metra email system causes FOIA issue. So I talked about it a couple years ago, how I propounded a FOIA, which is a Freedom of Information Act request that citizens can propound on a public body to get information, meaning documents, relating to how that public body is functioning or how they're contracting or how they're working, their system. So mine was a very simple request for a contract. They blew me off. They didn't respond within 5 business days. So what became of that is the judge in the case I mentioned before, wasn't too familiar with FOIA, and she had ruled against me, filed an appeal, prevailed, and that's what the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin reports. So they are stuck paying 3 attorneys involved, about $100,000 worth of attorney's fees, plus they have to pay a civil penalty. So one thing is, when you send an email to a public body, you expect them to respond to your request. So this case, this appellate court case, now defines when it's sent, they can't sit there and say, oh, it's stuck in our spamware or firewall or anything else. It's received when you transmit it. So you don't get to hear, we can't find it, we didn't get it. So next, we'll touch on leadership in the city of Chicago, which may not require any further explanation, but I want to revisit a couple of points. This is our Mayor Johnson. And we've had a slew of mayors that maybe while they're well-intentioned, they are not necessarily the right pick. I mean, do we actually believe we've elected the best and brightest to office? Are we ever able to achieve getting people in office that really want to do the job or are capable? First, they're not being paid enough. Anybody who's the best and brightest, is in the corporate world. They're making many times what they can that the elected officials get. So it takes a certain person to want to be a politician, but on the other side of the coin, we want somebody that knows what they're doing. So I take issue with Mayor Johnson's priorities at times. There was discussion about reparations for those who do not understand what the word reparations means. It concerns African Americans whose forebears were slaves before slavery was abolished in this country in 1865 following the Civil War. So over 160 years ago. And Mayor Johnson supposes his contingent is owed money for what took place in another state. As I recall my history class, Chicago is part of Illinois, and it was never a slave state. Land of Lincoln, right? I guess if you can't get reparations, then you can tax the shit out of the homeowners and business owners in Chicago. And heck, the tax assessor is significantly increasing assessments on South Side and West Side residents who can ill afford it. There is an increase in property tax owners who can't pay their taxes. They're elderly, they're on fixed incomes, they are living in the areas that they are because they can't afford. So guess what? Let's tax those areas more, push those people out, and then, it just snowballs. So, Mayor Johnson, in government, as in the rest of us, adjust your lifestyle to your income or adjust your income to your lifestyle. And government doesn't seem to get it. They're like a neutered dog. They just don't get it. So when we have high taxes, let's talk about the suburbs. The suburbs want high taxes, and if you ask somebody why, I'm talking the higher end suburbs. They want to keep the riffraff out. They'll tell you that. But the city of Chicago is not exactly increasing taxes to keep the riffraff out. We have some pretty unsavory people here. So it's not working. If you're going to increase taxes to keep the riffraff out, be sure you deal with the riffraff. So a recent trend I see, and I think I can speak to this, with our elected officials, is they hail from areas of disparate poverty, in areas of downtrodden neighborhoods, and all it is that they know about that is they're comfortable with that scenario. They're familiar with it, but when they get in office, they deflect the blame from government mismanagement by blaming the problems on of their base on those maybe that are more fortunate, that have worked for a living, saved their money, and scraped by and improved their lot. So look the other way when the base destroys downtowns, driving businesses out. That's right, businesses voting with their feet, and they're leaving. I tell you this, Mayor Johnson, the residents of the city of Chicago do not share your values. Things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. The spend rate is unsustainable. Pensions, business revenues are declining. Businesses are leaving, big businesses. The taxpayers have become the new American slaves. From Mayor Johnson's perspective, perhaps, we should all swallow the blue woke pill and follow along, like the Borg at the Obama Center. So feel free to consort with your American flag burning aldermen, socialist friends, your communist friend Bernie Sanders, who helped get you elected and trumped for you. Kindly do us all a favor and leave us in peace by not seeking re-election during the next mayoral election term. Okay, so what was all that talk about removing red light cameras, speeding cameras? We had ShotSpotter that was taken out. It's all back, and there's more of it. And in the more downtrodden neighborhoods, are those installs going? You look at the map where ShotSpotter was placed. Southwest, west, all neighborhoods of color. The red light camera, okay, speeding seems to be increasing. Well, some of the northern districts, the aldermen are kind of, aware, fighting that. But we were promised, Mayor Johnson, you were going to get rid of this. Reminds me of Bush, the first Bush. Read my lips on taxes. Well, he got deselected. Father was a Republican, when Republicans were Republicans, and voted for Bill Clinton. So maybe we need a Republican in office instead of a Democrat. So let's talk about ShotSpotter next. Adam Toledo, the 13-year-old, youngest person to get killed in Chicago in many, many years. Mayor Johnson realizes, okay, the system isn't a good system. There's problems with it. It's used as a throwdown. Oh yeah, we got a shot spotter alert. That's why we came here. Fourth Amendment flies out the window. They see anybody. You make a furtive move, you're going to get your brains blown out because they think you've got a gun. They don't ask you. They don't go on the PA. They don't say, hey, do you have, sir, what's your name? What are you doing out here? Oh, well, yeah, I'm getting mail out of my mailbox. Yeah, don't do it too quickly. But even Mayor Johnson realizes that police officers vote too. After all, they're stuck living in the city of Chicago. You think they'd live here if they had a choice? They patrol it, they see it every day. They don't want to be here, it's too expensive. They're stuck. Okay, we're going to transition to discussion on the consent decree. So the consent decree, many of you have heard about it, maybe some of you haven't. That was a federal, I'll call it a federal mandate. It was agreement between like City of Chicago and the Illinois Attorney General's office to instill some guidelines and standards to improve transparency, training, improve the police department. You know, even though they don't want to change, they've been set in their ways a long time, but those are the old ways. And accountability is a factor here. However, the city's progress surrounding police training, a file-stamped letter to Judge Pallmeyer, which I delivered, and I'm going to read excerpts from this so you can kind of understand what is the problem. But so the state of Illinois versus City of Chicago, and the case number is 17CV06260, also known as the consent decree. And Judge Pallmeyer actually solicited for public input on what we can do better. And there's a lot they can do better. The achievement rate on the consent decree for most of the time was less than 10%. It hit 16%, and we're out 7 years. So the case number is 17CV. That's no, that's longer than that. We're at 9 years on this thing. So it's a 22% achievement rate. Now, a school teacher would be considered quite generous to issue a passing grade on 22%. In the entire world, the only situation where 22% constitutes a passing grade is for the uranium enrichment program. So in an effort to generate some thought and be helpful, I informed the good judge that the people that are working on this program, the Illinois Attorney General's office, she's got some law firm managing it. They don't return phone calls. They don't want input. They don't want to do anything. They're just going to let this, they're going to slow walk this. The police aren't interested in implementing it. The prosecutors aren't interested in it. The judiciary and the state courts aren't interested in it. Nobody is taking it seriously. So I advocated to Her Honor Judge Rebecca Pallmeyer that she replace the entire CPD monitoring team, eliminate the political hacks, install members of the public. The public, can you imagine that? Public input. Or include trial lawyers in the process who actually have firsthand trial experience where the use of force has resulted in a murder, death, kill, or debilitating injuries. They know a thing about it. They know what's involved. They know where the problems lie, except that's not happening. I've sat in on Judge Pallmeyer's trials. She's a pretty good judge. She knows her thing, but she's a little wishy-washy, and she tends to be a little tolerant of people that don't engage as and when they should. So my letter was directed to inform her that she needs to, she needs to do a shift change here. So the consent decree, as it is currently scripted, lacks forecast and capacity. And in civil matters, there's not a political or a FOIA dispute that I just mentioned that does not become a judicial one. So somebody's suing over police misconduct or the police killed somebody, that's a civil trial, wrongful death type cases. And I posit that the Cook County Judiciary, especially as concerns the Chancery Division, those are all hand-picked people to maintain the status quo. Ask me how I know. I had to do 7 years to get an appeal to reverse a judge that was handpicked to take care of certain things, as our former Alderman Burke said, the very judge that I had. I'm not going to mention her name anymore. It's not worth my time. She was handpicked. Okay, let's go to the next page here. So 22% suggest lack of cooperation by the police. The judiciary is non-supportive, and the state's attorney has failed to take basic steps in prosecuting police officers for perjury over sworn testimony in depositions and trial proceedings. That's the problem. The cops, when they're in a judicial or courtroom environment, or they're having a transcript taken of their testimony, they lie, and nothing's done about it. I've heard prosecutors and defense lawyers tell me constantly, the police lie. Everybody knows the police lie, but what's being done about it? The state's attorneys don't do squat. Why? Because guess what? Next time they have a case up, and you prosecuted that cop, he may not participate and cooperate with you in helping to prosecute the criminal. But when those that are fighting the crime become the criminals themselves, by perjuring themselves, I suggest that a change is necessary. So transparency is also sorely lacking in the Freedom of Information Act, and that must become a component of the consent decree. The city of Chicago routinely stonewalls on litigation on FOIA denials involving the police department, and handpicked Chancery Court judges ensure the status quo. I did a FOIA, it was in the news, when the Venezuelan immigrants were living in the police stations. Two young ladies, a star didn't appear in the north, but a star appeared on the badge of some officer that decided, to take their temperatures because they weren't feeling well, and they got pregnant. No star appeared in the north, but a star on the chest. The FOIA was in the papers. I said, I want the names of, the reports. I want the documents, everything really. We don't have any responsive documents. Complete and utter BS. Okay, so it's not news, but when you outright lie, when it's in the news, when it's known, when women are getting pregnant, right after that incident, you no longer saw migrants living in the police stations anymore. The police department couldn't take the heat, of any more pregnancies occurring. I don't know where these women were when they were, when the star appeared, but I presume it's in the police station. So they don't know anything about it. God bless them. Okay, I'd like to talk about a little I'd like to talk a little bit about our illustrious Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul. Mr. Raoul, I think when he was a state representative, I propounded a FOIA on the Judicial Inquiry Board. And the Judicial Inquiry Board was sent an inquiry by me against the former Chief Justice of the Illinois Supreme Court, Robert Thomas. Mr. Thomas manipulated the system he dominated from top to bottom to extract the largest defamation award in Illinois history against a small community newspaper over an opinion column with a circulation of less than 16,000. And he was awarded $9 million. Okay? I'm not going to get into the details of it, but there was a binder about this thick that I received. Bruce Sanford, the preeminent First Amendment lawyer in the United States at the time, was representing the newspapers. I read this thing. They, meaning the entire Illinois Supreme Court at the time, including Ann Burke, married to Alderman Burke, who taught who? Constitutional irregularities, violation of all the judicial canons of ethics. I turned them into the JIB. The JIB didn't do squat. They didn't do anything. I FOIA'd the JIB. Tell me the outcome of my inquiry. Did you do anything? It never got back to me. Never acknowledged they even got it. Talked to them. Used to be able to visit with them. Now you can't access government anymore. It's in a secured building, and unless you have an appointment, you won't get an appointment because you can't get through on the phone. Nobody responds to you. Government is insulated itself from the public in the new building they're in, not like the old, formerly known as the Thompson Center. Kwame Raoul floats a House bill. So when I do the FOIA on the JIB, they should have been, by all accounts, a regulatory agency. When they're done with their investigation, the records are subject to FOIA. They didn't want to respond. All right, so we had the public access counselor at the time, Lisa Madigan, could it be? Now, her father wasn't so interested in transparency in government either. And then, again, the apples don't fall from the tree. They look at it, and they say, oh, well, the Judicial Inquiry Board is quasi-judicial, so therefore they're exempt from FOIA. Well, they're not judges. They're regular people. But while that was going on, Michael Miner, deceased, great reporter, Sun-Times, the Daily Chicago Reader, great reporter, mentioned Kwame Raoul floated a bill to exempt the Judicial Inquiry Board from being subject to FOIA, right when I had my case up with the Illinois Attorney General's office. Darned if you're going to let your pants fall down. So this joker, this Mr. Raoul, tried to screw me out of getting my information in case the Illinois Attorney General's office was going to make sure that was provided. Darned if you're going to let your pants fall down again, right? He's now our Illinois Attorney General, and he's running for re-election. Jettison that man. He doesn't belong there. He's not a thinker. He's a type of guy, he's a system guy that tried to screw the citizens out of having proper accountability on a FOIA. And I've got the document in the House bill that he put through. And when he was asked about it by Mr. Miner, he didn't know anything about it. He doesn't know what bills he sponsors? What, he pulls them out of his behind and he just, wipes and then turns it in? Yeah, it's a matter of credibility. Okay, we're going to go to our next image. Okay, in case none of you is familiar, I have been following the Adam Toledo case. This is a mural depicting where the area Adam was shot. And this is the 13-year-old that was killed by Officer Eric Stillman. And that case is pending or was pending, and I'll explain why it's not now pending, in the Daley Center. So the case was set for trial in early April. However, the Chicago Tribune reported it was non-suited. They did a May 3rd article, which I'm posting here. I'm going to leave this up while I talk, so hopefully if your screen at home has a good enough resolution. I tried to take the best picture. Madeline Buckley did a very, very good and thorough story, and he reported that the network media who reported that this case was dismissed, failed to give you the entire story, which is their MO. A half-truth is like a half-brick and can be thrown twice as far. So when a case is non-suited without non-prejudice are included in the order, as here, that means the plaintiff is legally entitled to refile the case within 1 year, and all indications are the plaintiffs, the Toledos, will be refiling the case probably much sooner, I imagine. So the brains of the talking heads are a little bruised with numb surprise that the case was dismissed before trial and without settlement. So media minds are unable to sort it out because they do not bother or care to get the facts. What I mean by that is the court file is public record. There's all kinds of documents. Just, send somebody over there to read it. They can't be bothered. Here's what they want. Give us murder, death, kills. Give us carjackings, police chases. Give us dirty laundry, but don't make us read. Okay. So my take on the case is justice took a turn for the worst when Law Division Thomas V. Lyons assigned the trial of the case to himself. Can we put on his honor? Okay. So I have a transcript with me. Just briefly, if we could go, I want to show the transcript here that I have in my hands. Okay. So this transcript was taken on the proceedings before a court reporter, and everybody sworn, on April 9th, 2026. I'm going to read a couple of experts. So what happened is Judge Lyons granted the city's motion to bifurcate the Adam Toledo case. Well, what does that mean? Well, they did an oral shimmy-shammy, and they said, well, Your Honor, we've got two things. We got a shooting, and we've got hiring, which are overlapping, and 5 years of work on the case, and they want to bifurcate it. So I'm reading this transcript, and Dina Weiss-Ortiz, her problem is she's an honest lawyer. There are very few of them. She's a hard worker. She does her research. She doesn't BS with the judges, so we can take down Ms. Ortiz. So this motion, she states, this motion apparently is not filed. We've checked the docket, and the docket does not reflect that motion has been filed. That's the motion to bifurcate. It's not even filed. A motion to bifurcate a case of this significance would be filed. And so she continues, so I don't even think it's even properly before the court. And she's absolutely right. A fictitious figment of somebody's imagination. Let's bifurcate, Your Honor. Okay. What? No motion. How do you respond to that? So I'm gonna continue with the transcript just a little bit. There's tabs here that I've written. So the judge states, as to the bifurcation, in the interest of judicial economy, the city's motion to sever, meaning bifurcate, is going to be granted. What motion? I checked the file myself. It's not there. It wasn't there before he ruled on it. And the plaintiff didn't have a motion. Okay, so let me go to the next thing, which is the most damning. This is what, let's go back to the Tribune article. Okay, this is what's quoted in this May 3rd, which is last Sunday's Chicago Tribune. Madeline Buckley, Chicago Tribune, Adam Toledo, Eric Stillman. You can Google it and find it. And it says, this is the judge talking, I don't want to hear things on the news about things that are going on in these rulings, things that are or are not going to be admitted into evidence. That has no place. Okay, off the Tribune article. Guess what? Courtrooms are public proceedings. There's 3 other transcripts where the court reporters who sit 5 feet away from Judge Lyons, if we can put him back on screen. No, I think I look much better, but we'll look at the judge for a while. The court reporters on these records, I have 3 others of these, state, we can't hear you, Your Honor. The media pool is coming up to the clerks during the breaks complaining, we can't hear the judge. The court reporters can't hear the judge, hardly. And they're 5 feet away. This guy doesn't want anybody to know what he's doing. The fix is in. Now, I did a little research, and I preface this by the information I'm not able to further verify, but this judge apparently had a law firm of Lyons and Lyons. And if somebody has better intel than I do, I'd appreciate hearing from it. But when he had his law firm, he apparently had a woman by the name of Gaynor working there. And I believe Miss Gaynor is the sister of Brian Gaynor, who's the attorney representing Eric Stillman in this case. And then as I read some of these transcripts, they talk about golf, those golf analogies. Well, Judge, maybe you tilt your bifocals and you can hit the little ball in the big hole and you'll be a better golfer. I don't know. But I'm reading and I said, wait a minute. These guys seem to understand what they're saying to each other in these golf things. I don't like golf. I don't like the clothing. I don't like the attire. And you know what? They talk so quietly, just like this judge was talking so quietly, like milk with toast. You couldn't understand a word he was saying. But anyway, I think on information in somebody, I may need verification. They quite possibly could be part of the same golf club. So I don't exactly see this judge as being what I would call somebody I would trust. I've seen enough. To be fair, I read some of his rulings on motions in limine, on the case, and some of the information didn't belong there. Oh, and by the way, ShotSpotter. We've all heard about that. It alerts the police. And as I read, the city did not want ShotSpotter part of this trial. Well, wait a minute. Isn't ShotSpotter what they claim purportedly to hail them to the scene? So in the transcript I'm reading, this poor judge doesn't seem to comprehend the standards for evidence. You have, let's say you have anybody out there who's ever been through a DUI or a speeding ticket, and there's a speed gun and there's a breathalyzer machine. They have to be calibrated before and after. They have to check it. So when they use that in court, it's an accurate device. ShotSpotter, as I read the transcripts, and I've read, there's 5 years worth of this crap I've absorbed. I'm good with the technology. They don't have ShotSpotter systems calibrated before after. They have no idea. They just sit there. They couldn't answer in the depositions of Mr. Stillman. Mr. Stillman doesn't know how it works. Well, if he doesn't know how it works, how does he know it's accurate where he just sits there and shows up and an alleged ShotSpotter sounding that they couldn't exactly explain where it came from, doesn't ask the people he first encounters, hey guys, what are you doing here? Get on the PA, talk to him, anything. He just goes commando, gets out of his vehicle, knocks the one guy down, and chases poor Adam Toledo down the alley with his gun drawn, which he's not supposed to have his gun drawn. Now, here's something, let's go off screen. I can't look at this man anymore. I'm not a fan of network media. They're 6-second sound bites. They don't get it right. They don't have any investigative reporting. To be fair, they don't have budget, and they're dealing with fake news, and, some of them are try, but I get sick and tired. Listen, every day, it's Donald Trump. Don't get me wrong. He's got his place. He's our president. I don't want to hear about him every day. I'm not interested. I'm not. I like some of his things. I like what he's doing, frankly, in Iran. Some of you don't. Why do we want to hear only about that? There's other more important things locally, and he's taken the air out of the room. We're not getting reporting. And then all the other stuff they just report on continuously. Murders, deaths, kills, robberies. We just can't seem to get away from it. We're scared. We're twittered to death by it all. Scared to death to go out. Even the old lady at the corner is a suspect. Got to watch out. So let's go back to the ShotSpotter. I digress. They got a ShotSpotter alert. They claim, in my opinion, it was an electronic throwdown in this matter. The city wanted it out. I've read that in the transcript. This judge, hem-haws. He can't figure out whether it should be in, it shouldn't be in. Well, they got there somehow. They were there. But guess what, Your Honor? The Fourth Amendment. You just don't sit there and go knock over a citizen that you first see. If you don't know, you don't see them committing a crime. That's what happened. They went right in, knocked the first guy over. The partner, the female partner, took him in the, cuffed him or held him at gunpoint, chased at him. But they didn't get the network media. Back to my thought. He's not supposed to have his gun drawn. How do I know his gun was drawn? Because he had a strobe light on the end of his gun that was flashing, and he's running down the alley, and you can see it. If it was holstered, that's okay. And that's what he blinded himself with that blaring strobe, and that blaring strobe is to decapacitate your vision. Instead of decapacitating the person he was chasing, he messed up his own vision. And he couldn't tell who that person, what they had in their hand or not. And the result, Adam Toledo got shot. So that guy, back to the consent decree, you have to learn how to use your equipment. You have to have training. This guy, Eric Stillman, he goes to the pension board. He sues the pension board. I read the opinion. 50% disability they awarded him for guess what? He's so mentally distraught, over having taken the life of this 13-year-old, he can't function as a police officer. Well, okay, but don't expect to get paid for killing somebody, dude. So he sues the pension board because 50% wasn't enough. He sues the pension board, and Judge Hall, Judge Sophia Hall, let's talk about her a little bit. But the end result was he gets an order for 75% pension benefits. Now, the case was open to the public at one time, and then it magically got sealed. They tried to use Mr. Stillman's lawsuit against the pension board to undermine the Toledo families, the estate of Adam Toledo case. I won't get into too much of it, but except to say, as soon as it was sealed, I said, wait a minute, why is this case being sealed? It's public. The hearing was public. The transcripts are public. I did a FOIA on the pension board. I got a transcript of Mr. Stillman talking about that he's hyper-vigilant. He's hyper-vigilant. What that means is he's stuck on. A military guy did some time in Afghanistan, I suppose. And there, you've got to be a little hyper-vigilant. You might get killed. But when you come back here and you can't shut yourself down, and he has some post-traumatic stress in him. That guy is getting a tax break for his stress, post-traumatic stress. He's got 30%, maybe 40%, maybe more. It's public record. Courts don't see it that way. They don't want anybody to know. He gets a tax break. Tax assessor gives it to him. Well, if it's not public, why should they give it to him? So I filed a motion to intervene and unseal because I do, media stuff. You see me here. My motion includes copies of all the documents that were public that they had sealed. Judge Hall, you heard that word bifurcate again? Well, I got that BS. Well, I want to see, sir, what is your standing to, intervene? I said, yeah, because the public wants to know why a man is seeking disability benefits for having taken a life. Well, Judge Sophia Hall's been there, octogenarian, I don't know, she's up there. Our mental faculties all decline, and that holds true for Judge Hall. Judge Hall had no idea what was going on. She's got law clerks. She, on 3 occasions, referred to me as Mr. Stillman, to be Mr. Stillman. And got an attorney, Ralph Licari. Not once did he say, Judge, he is not my client. 3 separate occasions. I did a substitution of judge for cause based on capacity of Judge Hall. Guess what? So I go up, Judge Hall, while I have my motion of SOJ for cause, she's supposed to transfer it to another judge to hear it. She elects to hear it herself, and she says, well, Mr. Stillman. So she refers to me as Mr. Stillman in the very motion I'm seeking to substitute her for calling me Mr. Stillman. That's the Chancery Division. Worst. Now, the Law Division, I expected more, and frankly, to put it mildly, Judge Lyons is a major, major disappointment. He's got a picture of the old Mayor Daley in his office and Richie Daley, in his office as well. Well, if you all recall, anybody who goes back far enough, or if you're in those affected neighborhoods, you remember Burge and all those bad cops and the prosecutors. Richie Daley was running the state's attorney's office. Judge Lyons got pictures, I'm told, on information, those 2 mayors in his office. Judge Lyons, get rid of those photos. Richie Daley is the idiot who sold our parking meters. He somehow, backroom deal, That's why our city's broke. Our city's broke. Some guy in the Middle East, some sheik, who knows what causes he's contributing to, is getting all this money. They recovered their $1 billion in 6 years. We couldn't have done better. Without those parking meters, we're screwed financially. We're never, ever going to recover. Okay? But that's what the Daleys did. But I digress. I'm not even going to talk about how, the civil rights were undermined. I'm not going to talk about the 60s when under the Mayor Daley Sr., they were hosing. In this very neighborhood I'm taping now, the police were fire hosing the African Americans. I remember that quite vividly as a child, asking my father, why are they doing that to these people? So, men of this ilk have no business in government, yet they serve as our judges, and I'm just trying to give you a little bit of a peripheral vision on what is the problem, how they tried to undermine the case. So back to the image of Miss Ortiz. Okay, so Miss Ortiz is multilingual. She's very quick on her feet. She happens to be an honest attorney, and she's done her level best. She's really more of a sole practitioner. She's got staff. Her husband is a law professor. She's got good people, and they work hard. And for 5 years, literally, 24/7, she's had to deal with the city not being forthcoming with discovery, with documents, claiming they don't have documents. Mr. Stillman, you find out in the pension board hearing, the pension board is asking Mr. Stillman, you have 12 use of force cases. All Ms. Weiss Ortiz was given was 1. Well, that goes to his hiring and why the man was hired. He should not have been hired as a police officer. They didn't properly vet him. Had they followed and cooperated and worked with the consent decree mandates, maybe Adam Toledo would still be alive today, but they didn't. So we can go off screen with. So I ask you, is the fix in? I'd like to thank you for watching. I welcome your comment or questions. You can always mail to CAN TV Studios. It's not always a good idea to stop by. I've had people stop by and ask, can I talk to the man who did the show? Sometimes they can pass along, but if you want to write, they get mail here still. We're a little old school. We do things on a personal level. But I'm always interested in input and comments for future shows. I thank you for your viewership, and I look forward to the next show. Till then, good night.